Hey everyone, it is Marie here from Skeinz, and I thought I would come and catch up with you today. Please ignore the beeping if you can hear it. We've got somebody here in the warehouse changing light bulbs, so there's not a lot I can do about that. But that's why I'm hiding here in the shop. I thought I would come in and catch up with you around just a bit of a post-sale catch-up. I mean, boy, was the epic sale huge for those couple of weeks, and we've certainly been mopping things up here and getting things back to normal after what have been an incredible couple of weeks. So thank you for all of those that came and visited. There were so many that came in and visited when they were here in the Bay, particularly for the likes of Horse of the Year and events like that. And it was really nice to see everybody, especially with, even the 2 weeks that the epic sale was on, how much things have changed here in New Zealand with the spread of COVID-19. So I thought we'd have a little bit of a catch up with the end of Epic Sale, and also about staying connected in where things are at with COVID-19. You may have noticed if you've on our mailing list, I've just sent out an email to everybody, and in that email is a really thing to download from New Zealand Couriers. They have been fantastic. We love our courier company. They've been with us for a number of years, and they have just given some new guidelines in regards to their delivery policies during this time, and they've now introduced contactless delivery. I've got in that email is a full update of what is going on. If you want to get a copy of that, I'll see if I can actually attach a file into the comments of this video for you as well to download. But primarily it is just around making sure that if you do have somewhere safe that you can have a parcel left, that you put that and communicate that really clearly at time of order in our comments box, and the drivers will work really hard to make sure that they will be able to leave that parcel for you in a safe place, because they won't be accepting signatory deliveries anymore. They're trying to do that social distancing to actually help reduce the spread and keep both themselves and you safe from this virus. So all that information is in a letter which can be downloaded, and I've sent out to those on the database, and as I said, I'll try and get that jumped in for you here as well. So there's lots of information there, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about as well what I have been knitting about staying in touch, because a lot of us there is actually a number of speakeasy members at the moment that I know that are already in self-isolation because they've just come back from trips or travel, or they're concerned potentially about their own health or low immunity, so they're wanting to keep themselves extra safe. So about how do we stay in touch with everybody, and also to knit up all that fantastic stock that we have left from the epic sale. And I know that loads of you have ordered stuff in, so you should be already stocked up and know what you're doing. So the first thing I wanted to kick off with is have you missed out on everything in the epic sale? Well, the short answer to that is no, you have not. If you jump onto the sale page, you may notice that there are still a few yarns sitting there. And we've had a handful of yarns which were made specifically for the epic sale. The effect yarn is one of them. I think we've still got Bud Burst and I think one of the berry yarns left. I think Cranberry Crush is still left in that. We've got just those two colours left in that beautiful merino and effect. So because there's only that little bit left, we've left that on sale. Also to the outlaw yarns. The outlaw yarns are on final clearance before they go on hiatus, and those yarns are Outlaw Queen Bee, which is the beautiful big chunky, and then also the Outlaw Vanitas, which we only have the 2 shades left, which is Shadowed and Wealth. And lastly, we've also got the Outlaw Nyx. Now Nyx is the beautiful, here it is there, is the beautiful 30% silk Polworth blend. Absolutely love this yarn. It's a DK, and one of the other yarns that we made specifically for the sale was this beautiful yarn here, which is also a 30% silk yarn that we did for someone else. And I've actually pulled these out to show you these yarns together. So this one here is called Orion, and I've got a funny feeling this one is called Artemis. There you go. And as you can see, they are very, very happy friends. And these are the sorts of yarns that you could actually knit together in some stripes stripes or some colour work, you can do some really interesting things with. And the beautiful thing about that is the fact that they're both spun to exactly the same count and the contents are the same. So you will actually have a seamless garment in the sense that the fabric will look just absolutely beautiful. This one here is Andromeda, and I've just pulled out, this is Dryad. But again, look at those two. Absolutely beautiful. And sometimes, you know, it's about putting those colours together and seeing what works. So if you're looking for wanting to do a stripe project, one of the things actually I'm looking at possibly doing is doing some maths actually on another vid very, very soon around these, in terms of, say, upsizing something like a Timely cardigan by Libby Myrtle, which is currently written into a 4-ply. But with a little simple jiggery pokery knit maths, you can actually upsize that to a DK yarn really, really easily, and how to actually do that and achieve that beautiful cardigan in yarn like this. But these are all, both these yarns are still on that sale page. So don't feel like you've completely missed out. The other thing I want to remind you, speaking of sale pages, is that you may have also noticed in that newsletter or on the other social media today, there is unfortunately going to be a price increase on 7 yarns. We don't, in fact, we haven't sort of had a large-scale store-wide price increase for a couple of years, and we sort of try and hold those prices down as long as we possibly can, but unfortunately, raw material supplies and the like have meant that some of these prices have creeped up. And so in there you'll find that there is Perrindale and Chatswood will both be going up. Vintage is also there, but the other one to actually be aware of is both the Orbs, both Orb Fine and Orb GK and Albertine. Now none of those yarns, Albertine and the Orbs, as full ranges, were in the Epic sale. So if you're working with those yarns currently, or you've got projects in your queue and you've earmarked those yarns for those projects, you may actually want to pick those yarns up before the end of the month, because those prices will be going up by the 1st of April. So in the tile that got sent out, it's on Instagram and Facebook, you will be able to see what those increases will be, and then you can actually work those calculations out. So don't worry about that at all, but do make sure you pick those things up ahead of time if you need to. So that is on those. Now, what else have I been working on? I've got my little list here. Now, I think I kind of showed you this last time, but I'm going to show it to you again. This was the cowl that I have finished. Look at that. There you go. And this is going to be the Harding Road cowl. I am going to be sending that off to the tech editor. Yeah, come on in. Sorry, so I'm sitting in the side room and I've closed it off, but people need yarn in here, so there you go. Going to be sending this off to the tech editor so I can actually get that pattern out for you guys so you can knit that one. And that is using the gorgeous Nomad, which is the camel and Polworth yarn that we've got in store. But the other one, and I don't know whether I've shown this to you, I was just pulling together some stuff from being away. This, I know I've shown you this pattern because I've knitted this hat. This is the Kiwi hat by Charles Gandy. I've knitted this hat in Pearl in the Sparrow, but this is the original hat from the actual pattern, which Charles actually wrote specifically for Bohemia Sport. Gosh, look at it compared to the wall behind me. Isn't that gorgeous? Now, you may be able to see with the camera, look at that beautiful halo of the possum. This hat is absolutely stunning in Bohemia Sport, just beautiful. Takes 2 balls to do the hat. It is just, I actually really enjoyed knitting this hat. For those, when you look at it, it is a charted pattern. He's got it both charted and written. I ended up using the chart, to be fair, because it is a very, very logical pattern, and it's a very pattern that's very easy to read when you're knitting it. And I found it really enjoyable to knit, you know, a very peaceful thing to knit. And I think if, you know, at the moment when we are at home, we are looking for those, I think we can actually take on projects that may have challenged us a little bit. But this one, it's challenging, but it's not challenging. It's actually really quite lovely. So it's called the Kiwi Hat by Charles Gandy. So I'll post that up so you'll know where to be able to find it. Also on my needles, so during this time, so over the weekend, I have been very, very quiet, and you may actually hear that I've a little bit snuffled. I've had a cold. And yes, it is a cold. I have phoned Healthline. I have been in touch with the GP. Very much a cold. It's that time of year and I have kids. So one of the things I thought is now that I'd finished this, I thought, right, I need to start cleaning up some of my UFOs. So I had, and then Louis, my oldest, reminded me of a scarf I started for him over the Christmas holidays. And I haven't finished it, and I don't know where I've put it, so I need to dig that out. Oops. But this was one I started last year, actually. I started this after Mid August Nights last year. And I think I showed it to you guys last year as well as I was working on it, which is this. It's going to be a hooded jumper for my my second son. And it kind of went into hibernation across the summer because I got onto other things that I wanted to work on. So I thought, no, I need to get onto this. So I'm now onto sleeves. And this is in the Lodge in Franz Joseph, which is just, yeah, absolutely love this yarn. And Lodge was in the Epic sale. So if you picked up any of the Lodge in the Epic sale, this pattern is, I'm hoping you can still get it. It's called Knitting Pure and Simple, neck down hooded pullover. Now, I got this on Pattern Fish, but I know that Pattern Fish isn't around anymore. So I'm kind of hoping that I'll have a look when I jump on the RAV and I'll let you know. But this one is, yeah, I thought this one, it's actually been quite a pleasant wee thing to knit. It's just very, very straightforward, but perfect for boys. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. And then today, as you can see, it is actually quite cool and a little bit rainy here in the bay today. So I've been able to dig out the Elemental Raglan, which is in Afi. So if you managed to grab some of this during the Epic sale, that's this one here, the Elemental Raglan, and that's by Dando. Yumiko Alexander is her name, and she's actually knitted this in a very simple garter stitch, and she's gone and done it in like a DK cotton, and it's sort of quite lacy. I mean, if you know me, that wasn't my bag. I just wanted the shape and the structure, so I've completely ignored the yarn suggestion that she's had. I've not knitted it in garter stitch, I've knitted it in stocking stitch. And also too, she made some changes in terms of the hemline, which quite frankly I didn't like. So, so essentially I have actually made quite a few modifications, as we all know I'm apt to do. But it's been quite good because at least it gave me a guide, because sometimes that's all you need is a bit of a guide. And Lee's asking, what's my hat? Well, my hat is my Stax hat. I think it was Karina Spencer is the designer. I knitted this several years ago out of Burlesque, if anyone remembers the Burlesque that we had, which was again a silk, 70% merino, 30% silk. That's a great hat. It's my fave. Thrash, absolutely thrash it. You know how you end up with your same favourite all the time, and I do absolutely thrash this. Now, with that newsletter that I sent out, speaking of favourites, speaking of knitting at home and all of those things, one of the things that I talked about, if you are new to us here at Skeinz, and I know that we have a number of people that have just discovered us, particularly through the Epic sale, and as you may or may not know, we do a lot of television advertising at that time, and so there are loads of people that haven't come across us during our traditional channels and are wondering, you know, what we get up to. So obviously we have this video here, and you could be watching this video either here on Facebook or you could be watching it over on YouTube. Depending on which place you're watching it at, you may wish to subscribe to the other, so then that way you make sure that you don't miss the videos when they come out. If you are a Facebook user and you're not a member of our Skeinz Speakeasy, may I strongly suggest you go and do that. Our Skeinz Speakeasy is over 2,500 people. It's a wonderful, wonderful community, super helpful, really lovely. And this is a group that if you have questions, or you're knitting at home, or you need advice, or you just want to bounce some ideas off people, the Speakeasy is the place for you. And the community is wonderful. You can ask a question about if you need something clarified in a pattern, you're not sure about colours, it's essentially a whole group there that are really helpful. So if we're not available to be able to help you here at the store or through our usual channels, the community will be able to be there, and they can get you answers honestly so fast, and they're just wonderful. We really love our Speakeasy members, and they certainly make my life a whole bunch easier, because they're just such a wonderful group. So if you're not a member of the Speakeasy, do go and hunt that out. I'll again put a link in the comments so you can find it, and do join the Speakeasy, because during this time where we won't be heading out and about quite as much as we used to, or heading away, I know a lot of you will be looking for virtual friends, and particularly too, a lot of people who are crafters do fall into high risk groups, and you're understandably wanting to be a little bit more cautious to make sure that you stay nice and healthy across not only a regular flu season, but this very heightened flu season with COVID-19. So the Speakeasy, I think, is just the place for you. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you're not a Facebook person, you might even want to just get Facebook so you can be part of the Speakeasy. I know there are plenty of people like that as well. So that is great community to join. And we're also on Instagram too. I have to admit, me and Instagram, loads of people do stories and all sorts of stuff. I'm an old traditionalist. I like to put me single photos or a little group of photos and a bit of a comment. I'm not very dynamic when it comes to Instagram, but I love Instagram because of just loads of images and inspiration there as well. So we can find us there under Skeinz. Yeah. Now, what was I going to? Oh yes. So staying at home, and so then, oh gosh, so much has gone on. So one of the conversations I had while I was away at Unwind is always, when we go down there, I rent an apartment with Deb from Out in Yarn. And we quite often end up doing lots of brainstorming and work stuff while we're there. And this year, she brought along with her offsider called Ethan, who works for her at HQ. And he's been with her now for almost 6 months, actually. And Ethan is Canadian, and he's worked in the industry in Canada. And he's young and he's dynamic, and he does design, and he is just technically the most outstanding knitter. He's fantastic. We had a great time discussing different elements with knitting and yarns and construction, and he's like me, he's an absolute construction yarn and fibre nerd. And so it's so nice for me to be able to meet somebody whose first instincts when they find a new yarn is to want to pull it to pieces and see how it's made up in construction and so forth. So having that time with Ethan was a real joy. And one of the things we talked about was, we talked about how who influenced us in our design crushes, and also how, at the moment there are so many designers that are really hot right now, and we're so lucky to have some of these designers based here in New Zealand. But also too, we were discussing around how we have, there's actually been a really long legacy of some incredible designers over the last 20 or 30 years. And I mean, let's face it, Elizabeth Zimmerman really changed the world of knitting, when she created so many new techniques at that time. And it's really easy to get caught up and down a rabbit hole with Ravelry and actually forget that we already have a wealth of really incredible design and patterning often at our own fingertips, and you forget that it's there. And I don't know how many of you guys are like me, but I have to admit I've been buying yarn books and magazines and the like for years. If you come into the store now, I've actually moved most of my library into here and out of the house. I've still got some at home. I haven't quite got all of them across here, but I've got a good chunk of them across there. And one of the things that Ethan and I talked about is we were talking about, who influences us. I mean, whose designs that we like to knit, who are those people that we've really had those well moments over. And I had to think about that for a bit. And I suddenly thought, my first designer crush, lots of people crush on different designers now. I know Stephen West is a big one, and Caitlin Hunter and Angela Mowbray, but for me, back in the day, I know Elizabeth Zimmerman for a lot of people is still their first design crush. For me, my first design crush was Nora Gowan. And Nora is a designer. She worked primarily with Barocco yarns. She's also worked, I think, with Classic Elite, and more latterly with Jared Flood and Brooklyn Tweed. And her designs are classic, edgy, contemporary, incredibly well constructed, beautiful, classic, timeless. And I have a number of Nora's books, and one of them is Knitting Nature, which is one of my all-time favourites, where she uses the shapes of nature and things like spirals and fractals, and thus to create beautiful hand-knitted garments. But unfortunately, those patterns are only sort of restricted to that publication. And I thought across this winter, when we're not sort of travelling and we are going to be at home, it's actually the perfect time to really get stuck into a larger scale project with a bit of teeth that you can really get into and enjoy and really, really dive deep into. And I thought, to honour Nora, I'd actually really love to do something by her, because it's been a while since I've knitted anything of Nora's. So I have jumped on and I have come up with this one here. And then, of course, I looked at the difficulty rating and it was 5 out of 5, typical. If I'm going to do something, I may as well do it, go whole hog. But I thought I would do that. And it is called the Chain Link Tunic. And as you can see, I really, really, really loved the shaping to it. So there's that very, very interesting waist and hip line there. Now, I'm somebody which is quite a classic pear-shaped. So for me, having something that comes in with an influence of the waist and then draws inward from that hip, I think is actually, from a flattering perspective, going to be quite good. And of course, that colour straight away drew me to it. It is used, the yarn selection on this is a Brooklyn Tweed Loft, but the yarn that we have, and this is looking at it, I do have it there. Where is it? Oh, it's probably sitting on the back of the sheet here, isn't it? Here am I looking for the page, and it's on the back. So this one here, it is using 29 stitch tension, nice firm tension, which I really like. We all know that I'm not big on sloppy gauge. And it's also broken out into a variety of different stitches, but it does have, the dimensions are 6 to 8 inches of positive ease, so quite loose, but they do have circumferences and finished dimensions all the way up to 57 inches. So for me, that's loads of room. And looking at the shaping on that as well, the nice thing is it flares out from the hip down, so I don't have to worry about things, going around the big bulgy bits that I get concerned about. And it is using, as I said, 28 stitch tension, and the yarn was a sort of fingering-ish weight. They used Loft and Brooklyn Tweed. I'm going to use Legacy and Mitch, which also means that I can get that lovely colour. And I think this will be absolutely cracking. It will be just beautiful in that. This is designed to get a standard 28 stitch tension anyway, so I just think it's going to be ideal. I mean, what's the bet this is going to take me the rest of the year to finish? It is certainly not a sit down and knit while I am madly watching the telly kind of piece, but it is modular. There's modular pieces, there's other pieces. I think there's enough going on there, and that's what I found with Nora patterns in the past, is that she's very, very clever with construction, and she'll move things in different locations, like you'll do different portions and different parts to a different pattern to actually pull it together as a whole. And often when you've got patterns like that, you're biting bits off a chunk at a time. So then you'll finish this part, then move to the next part. So it actually feels like it's going a lot faster than it would if it was something like a classic top-down, where you're sort of moving in pieces around and around and around, and sometimes you just feel like you're spending your entire life going around in circles. I don't think I'll have that experience with this. So that's what's going to be going on my needles. I've got stuff I'm hoping to start swatching this week and make sure that I get my gauge absolutely spot on for that. But the other thing you can do if you're at home, and this is one of the things, and I've actually pulled this out. Who's gone? Go on, be honest. Who's got a copy of this at home? I bet you there is more than one of you that have got this book at home. I picked this up at an op shop. This one, I think, or it could have actually been part of the original collection. I've had it a long time, and I know that there'll be some of you with this at home. And I know actually if you're going into op shops and secondhand booksellers, this, trust me, this or its friends, because there was a whole heap of them that were launched in the 80s, they will be in there. And I pulled this out just to show you an example of how, you know, I mean, we all know in fashions things come around, right? So much comes rolling around, and we don't necessarily need to jump out and buy another pattern when we've actually got the resources under our noses. And I just wanted to pull out and just show you a couple of the patterns that featured in here that honestly could easily be in, oh, look at that, in terms of a two-toned honeycomb and shooting-based yarn, those sorts of styles, very popular now. Speaking of Fair Isle and all things colour work, look at that little twin set. Or maybe you want something, oopsie, in a classic Aran. Look at that princess dye here, eh? Now there was another one in here. Now look at this. Speaking of colour work, I mean Scandinavian colour work. Look at that. I know. And as I said, this is honestly, you can pick these up in the in your op shops. Now the only downside for someone like me in these style of books is that of course people were so much smaller back then. So for sizing, for me, I have to admit I struggle to find anything in my size. However, it's not that difficult to size things up, or alter your sizings, and I do it all the time. And actually I will get round to maybe pulling together a tutorial about running a bit of a knit maths and being able to do some sizing so you're able to get things sized and done a whole bunch easier. But don't, you know, if you've got some books or magazines lurking in an old dark corner, if you've been on the speakeasy, you've been flashing your stash, and I tell you what, is it just me, or have I noticed a few little stash spring cleans going on before photos were taken? One does get the impression that that has happened, because some of these stashes do look incredibly well organised, vastly more organised than mine, I have to say. So I do think some cleanups have been done before show and tell. Do keep them coming. Love them, by the way. And the name I've forgotten you, and I'm so sorry, but the gift that you sent today, literally flashing, was fantastic. Loved it. Put a smile on my dial today. So keep those up. But I am sure that you've got a book or two like that sitting on the shelf with a stash. You know, make yourself a cup of tea this afternoon, sit down and actually start flicking through some of those old books or magazines that you haven't picked up in a decade or two, and actually see what's in there. And give yourself a bit of a surprise at how much fashion, particularly in knitwear, has rolled around in the last few years, and see how you can put your own spin on it. Apply some yarns to it. Not sure about a yarn, don't quite know how you can substitute something in those old books. That's what we're here for, what Speakeasy is there for. Take a photograph of the yarn requirements and picture of the pattern, pop it up and see what people think. They might be able to give you some colours or some suggestions to help you find that perfect yarn or that perfect colour for the pattern that catches your eye. That's what we're here. We're here to help. This is all part of our wider community. So I've been rambling. How long have I been? Oh look, half an hour. There you go, my magic mark. Hey, just to remind you, we are still open and here in store. We've got a few measures going on here in store as well to keep you safe, keep us safe. So if you walk in the front doors, you may notice that there is a little pedestal there with some hand sanitizer. So we've done that for everybody coming in, but we do actually have traditional hand washing facilities if you prefer those. Just let us know and we will direct you down to those so you can wash your hands before you come in and have a good browse and a fondle and a touch of all the lovely yarn that we have here in store. But in the meantime, do keep yourself safe, well, warm and healthy. Our community is here. So whilst you may need to be behind closed doors, our door, both digital and in store, is always open, and we'd love to see you. So do come in and visit. Do share with some of your other crafty friends who don't know about us. Encourage them to share, help them get joined up with tablets. And I'm looking at also technology so that we can maybe do some virtual knit-ins together. I don't quite know how, I'm not that technical, so I'm going to need someone to help me out with that. And I have just the young man that will do that for me. And that might be something really fun that we could hopefully try out and do our own Skeinz stitch-ins. But until then, have a great rest of week. I may actually talk to you again on Thursday if I've got something to say. I've always got something to say. But until then, have a great, great week, and I will talk to you again soon.